At the beginning of this year, January 2024, it was time to get serious about moving to Asia. Even though I could change my mind or back out at any time, I had to set a definitive time limit by which I would want to be fully ready and departing the UK for my new life abroad. Now, I decided that towards the end of October would give me enough time to be able to do everything necessary, making all preparations and arrangements to ensure a smoother transition as possible. Coupled with the fact that in the UK, it's starting to get dark on an evening at about roughly the same time as it does in the Philippines, so I'm not going to be plunged into darkness in the middle of late summer nights here. On the one hand, I didn't want to be rushing things, but I also didn't want to be going out too close on the run-up to Christmas. Moving to Asia would mean that all of the things that I've amassed over the years from moving houses, I would need to get rid of, as I just wasn't going to have any use for them in the future. And if I ever decided to return to the UK on a more permanent basis, I'd just have to start over from scratch. It wasn't going to be practical or feasible to move things over there like furniture or even electronics like TVs and such, especially if I was going to rent for the long term, as most of those things are usually included as part of the deal. In fact, Airbnb takes it a stage further, including bed linen, towels, kitchen utensils, and everything else that you would usually need to equip an apartment with. Now, this meant that I could dispense with the need to concern myself with making various purchases when I'm over there. It's also a prerequisite to this journey that the actual move itself was to be self-funding, and by that, I mean liquidating through the sale of anything and everything that I just didn't need anymore. Essentially, getting rid of the past to fund the future. Now, first off on the list was an antique Albert watch chain, a gold necklace that had been given to me as a Christmas present by my first ever girlfriend over 30 years ago, when they were in fashion. She'd worked for most of the summer as a waitress in a hotel, and a good chunk of her earnings went on it costing at least a few hundred, which is quite something at that age and stage in your life. Now, I actually only worn it for the first week or so because it was a link too tight. When we took it back to the jewelers, they said that it would cost around another 100 to get an extra link put in. I was only 19, so I thought I'd save it and do it at a later date when I could afford it. Somehow that got delayed and then some, so I kept it because I knew it was of reasonable value and maybe out of respect as well. It came from a prominent antique jewellery shop. Yes, I'd kept it all this time in its original box, waiting for that extra link to make it wearable again. No point keeping it any longer, and a very poignant moment in my life to validate the sale of it. So it was placed on eBay at around $1,500 or so, and was sold within days to an American woman who wanted a gold one to match the silver one that she'd recently purchased as well. It went to a good home. Next up was a Breitling Wings automatic watch that was an engagement gift to myself when I purchased an engagement ring for the girlfriend that followed a few years after the first one I've just mentioned. 27 years down the line, I'd only worn it for the first 5 really due to the sheer weight of it, not being practical to wear it on a daily basis if you're gymming and swimming as I do. The rest of the time it sat in its original box with all the purchase papers, invoices and valuations, only to discover that, like Rolex, Breitling don't seem to hold their value as much. Rolex have been quite clever over the years in creating the demand through scarcity. The watch I purchased for around $2,500, I was soon to learn would only fetch a fraction of that. So I made a deal with the universe and said, look, if you can find someone to buy this watch up for me sooner rather than later, all I ask is that it's enough to cover the travel costs in full, whatever that is, to get me from my front door in the UK to the front door in the Philippines. This must include taxis, trains, and flights. Now, there were 10 watchers watching my watch, and not one had made me an offer in the 2 months that it had been available. And time was ticking. So the very next morning, when one of them put in an offer, albeit quite a bit under what I was asking for, but at a price from which, once I deducted eBay fees and costs and postage, would essentially cover what I've been asking for, I wasn't going to try and be greedy and push for more, because there was only one other person selling the same watch as me and at a price that was slightly higher than mine. And it had already been there for 7 months. So I hastily accepted and the deal was done. Transport was now covered. As the weeks and months went by, I got a taste for this. I found myself wandering around the house, searching for ancient priceless relics and any other items, looking for that Antiques Roadshow moment, enabling me to maybe purchase outright one of the 7,641 islands the Philippines has to offer. Just really to find something that I'd completely forgotten about or had no idea what it was worth. So I spent a lot of time researching on eBay, learning all about antiques, silver and gold hallmarks, and became quite an expert in the process. These things ranged from old mobile phones through to antique solid silver hat pin boxes and silver grooming sets that had been given to me by my grandmother that had passed a decade previous. I traipsed around antique dealers in my local area, usually casually brushed off with ludicrously low offers in exchange for them. However, in the end, I got several times those amounts, all on eBay. Next was an Epiphone Classic Cherry Sunburst acoustic guitar that I purchased 20 years ago from a music shop in Basel, Switzerland, that had been sat behind the door in my back bedroom office for the last 15 years, which I was actually ready to use as firewood, as my daughter had no interest in it. Or maybe I could give it to the next door neighbour for a few quid. Again, eBay to the rescue, learning that the same guitar new would set you back 800 on eBay, and second-hand ones in reasonable condition would fetch between 4 and 7. So I put it on Facebook Marketplace at the lower end, and it was sold within 2 days. All adds to the fund. The point that I'm trying to make here is this. You'd be amazed what you've either got forgotten about or tucked away or hidden in a cupboard somewhere that could be of value. When you realise that you're never going to use this stuff again, or you haven't maybe used it in years, even decades, there is absolutely no point in keeping it, and you'd be surprised how these amounts start to add up. By the time I'd finished this exercise, I had enough to cover laptops, phones, bags, flights, gadgets, battery packs, basically everything I was going to need for my new minimalistic approach to life. And I really do mean minimalistic. Bearing in mind that you're moving to a climate where the temperatures stay fairly consistent throughout the year, there's no need for various changes of seasonal clothes. It's pretty much t-shirts, short sleeve shirts, shorts, sliders, flip-flops, sunglasses and baseball caps. So by the time I sat there staring at all my belongings, repeatedly saying the words, I don't need that, I don't need that, or that, there really wasn't much I was left with that I was actually going to take with me. I made the decision that I was going to take one good quality carry-on bag for luggage, and that would contain everything that I would need for my new minimalistic approach to living abroad. Most long-haul international flights allowing around 7 kg for carry-on luggage. Here is a list of everything that fits into that one bag and its approximate weight. So my whole life is in that bag. A bit scary, I know, but very freeing as well.